everybody, Caleb here in the Rosa String Works Workshop. This is Dan Lipsey's 12th string that needed a neck reset. I've finally got to it in queue, so I'm getting ready to start on it. I've already got some water warming up, hopefully for steam. I think what I need to do here is pull this fret, which is the 12th fret where the body joint is, and I'll drill a couple of holes so I can get some steam down in the joint, and we should be working our way out of here. I think that's what I'm going to do. We'll see how it goes. So I quickly went over what the plan was for this with Jerry, and you can see I've got this heating up, and I'm heating up the tongue area of the fretboard, the place where it comes onto the body, because I'm going to slide some tools underneath the fretboard and unstick it from the body. And in the first clip I said I was going to pull a 12. I'm actually going to pull the 13. I was mistaken. The 13 will be the end of the dovetail joint, so that's where I'll drill holes underneath the 13th fret. So I'm just going to go ahead and let this get warm. This removal tool is going to get warm, and I've got a really thin tool. Hopefully I can get underneath the fretboard. You can see I've got the tape on there to protect the finish. So I'll let this get warm and I'll bring you back once I start working at it. I've started working my thinnest tool underneath of it, and I got quite a ways on this one side. It's looking pretty good. I'll start working my way across. What I'm doing is I'm just sliding it in, pulling it out, moving it over slightly. Trying to make as few marks as I can. Alright, so I've got the whole end started. This whole end is loose up to a certain point. I'll try bringing it around and maybe I can show you a little bit better. So you can probably see that that whole end is loose. Camera angle is screwing me up a little bit because I can't quite get where I can do this with my right hand. I know this is definitely the best angle for the camera so you can see what I'm doing, but I'm going to have to move you. Well, I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off. I'm going to try to keep working at this. It's not quite warm enough up here towards the headstock, so I'll bring you back once I make some progress. So I've actually put some water around the 13th fret to soften up the rosewood so I hopefully don't chip it out so bad. That was a muchie. Everything was working better before I turned the camera on. So I'm just kind of lightly wiggling it. It's really close to coming out anyway. I just took the heat off of here, and I know that the whole tongue is unstuck. So I know that it's really warm, and just like that, fret's out. That was really good, really clean. The fret's probably really hot. So the next thing to do would be drill some holes on each side of the dovetail and start putting steam in there.
So anyway, it's going to be about right there. It's just an approximate. You just don't know. No good way to know. And I'm angling it at the angle of the dovetail too. Just and again, it's all approximate. And I'm just going to turn it on real slow. Then I hit the cavity perfectly. Hit it perfectly. You can tell I didn't hit anything.
Yeah, because it just dropped.
It just dropped. So it was perfect. And again, I'm just going to do it about right there. Hit the cavity perfectly.
Cool.
You can tell, it's obvious I hit it. If you keep feeling resistance, you know you didn't hit it.
So, you saw Jerry do it. I went and got him just because of the value of this instrument, and I didn't want to end up drilling 2 or 3 wrong holes. I'd rather him do it. This was the smallest bit that this should fit in, and even then it's pretty tight. Turn the heat up again. Hopefully we'll get some steam coming here before too long. There we go. It's starting to go. I can see the steam coming out. I'm going to get a couple more of these shop towels just to soak up any water. I can actually see the steam coming out the other hole. I'm sure that is 212 degrees, so I don't really want to go sticking my hand in it. Usually this goes in cycles, so it should slow down here in a second. I should be able to switch the holes, switch which hole it's in. Whew, yeah, it's hot. Trying to get it in there deep enough that I know it's not just spewing on the top underneath the fretboard. I think it's there now. Of course now it's finally cooled off, but it's stopping. So I put this towel underneath here, and it's getting wet, which means there's water coming through the neck joint, I think. Or rolling down the sides is also possible, but I think that was coming from underneath. I start wiggling the neck, and it sure doesn't seem like it's coming loose at all. I'm going to let this go for a little bit and keep watching it and maybe switch them back and forth between this hole, the 2 holes. If I make any big progress, I'll bring you back, but no point in just sitting here watching me soak up water. So I took a little break on this, and I'm coming back to it now, and the water's still heating up. But you can see I've got the neck removal jig on here, and it's snug, not super tight, but snug. I'm waiting for the water to get warm, and once it is, I'll start maybe working at this. I got it to the point in which the neck would it'd move a little bit. I had to push a little bit, but it moves, so it's getting loose. Hopefully this way we can just get it the rest of the way out. So I'll bring you back once it gets nice and warm and I can maybe actually start turning on these. So it's steaming pretty good. It's steaming really good. I got started on this. I actually don't really like sticking my hand in there because it's steaming something fierce. I think I might have it actually. That's it. There was no pop. There was nothing. I just got it really steamy. As clean as it could have come. Very cool, very cool. I'll give this all a little bit of time to dry. I'll try to get this out of here. I don't know if you can see it, but it is putting off the steam. I'm really happy with this, considering how, expensive these instruments can be and how much you don't want to damage them. This turned out awesome. Okay, so I'll give this some time to cool down and dry off, and then we'll come back at this. So Jerry and I have been looking at this Martin 12-string neck and how it mates with the body. He's given me a number, and I've marked it on here. It's about 15 thousandths. It's not a lot at all, but I've marked it on the end here. and I used this metal ruler as a straight edge to take from 15 thousandths to nothing, and then I just used this scalpel blade and marked it a few times till I've got a good line. I've done that on both sides, so now I'm going to take off up to that line, and then we're going to fit it back in the neck. So I don't know if you can even see 15 thousandths on there, and that may not be enough, but I can always take more off. I can't add it back on, or at least not in a way that's going to look any good. So we'll start with this and then, you know, fit it all up and see where we go from there. So I can always take more off, but it's best to take as little off as I can at a time and make sure it stays straight. And just work it a little bit at a time. So I've got the neck sitting in here at a pretty good angle now. In the process of taking some off of the heel, and a lot of it is cleaning out all the old glue, the joints become a little bit loose. So I'm going to go ahead and put some shims on each side of the dovetail here. That'll be on the neck side. I've got some mahogany strips already cut. I'm just going to glue them in. I'm actually going to cut them to length a little bit. It'll help me get rid of some excess. Then I'll come back and glue those on. So these little shims have had some good time to set up. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking some carbon paper and putting it on the inside of the neck pocket. Maybe I'll hold it on with the neck. And then as I put the neck in, it will press the carbon paper where it won't let it go down. So I'll know where to carve away to allow this to fit in very tightly with no air gaps. You can see there, I think. I've still got a ways to go down, so I've got a lot more carving to do. I'll show you a little bit of it. So I pull it out and you can see there's a dark spot right in there, and then there's a little bit of dark spot down here. So that's where it's making contact, and that's what's stopping the neck from going further down. So I'll just carve that off. And then I'll basically just repeat the whole process until this gets all the way in there. So you can see the neck is now all the way in, and it fits pretty snug. Jerry and I have been double and triple and quadruple checking this, making sure this is going to be good. And I think it's looking good. So I think I'm just about ready to glue it in. You can probably see here most of my mahogany shim is gone. You know, there's a couple places where I actually went all the way through, but it's still there, and it tightens up that joint really good. So I think I'm ready to glue this in. I've got lots of clamps ready. I've got a couple of pieces of wood just taped on the inside that I can clamp against, so I'm not going to dent anything. I think we're good to go. this neck sat up for about 4 hours. I think I'm ready to move on here. I've already worked on cleaning up some of the glue, squeeze out, and that sort of thing. I'm ready to stick the 13th fret back in now, which could be a little bit of a process. Depends on how easy you want to go back in there. It should cover up the holes we drilled to get the neck out of the pocket in the first place. Once it's started, I should have no problem. And just like that, you'd never know it was out of there. I don't think you can even see. I know by looking at it you can kind of see where the holes were, but I can just barely see them on the camera. And I might try to fill those, or I might just leave them. But I think it looks pretty good. So I believe we're ready to start working on the setup on this. I don't think Jerry had leveled the frets beforehand, so I'm going to go through and make sure they're all level. I also got to remove the blocks from having this glued up. So I'm going to get ready to level these frets, and then I'll bring you back and show you a little bit of that. So I'm working on the frets on this now. I've already gone ahead and taken a quick swipe over this with my file. There was a little bit of an unevenness down in the tongue area. I went ahead and took care of that. Now I'm going through and I'm crowning frets. So I've got my crowning file. I really haven't touched these up in here because there wasn't any issue with level, but down here I've hit a little bit harder, so I'm going to make sure these are nice and crowned. These are still round, so I'll go through here. And the goal here is to make these round, but I don't want to take any height off the top. And with the light on, especially, I don't know how well you can see it, but I can see that the peak. And I can see it get smaller and smaller. And I mean this way, it gets thinner and thinner until it's just barely left, and that's when I'll move on. That one's pretty good. I hit these a little harder than I thought I did, so I'm going to go ahead and just go through and make sure they're all good. Alright, so now we're going to polish these. I'm going to start with some 600, and I'm just going to do it like this. I will be coming back to clean up the actual wood part, so I'm not worried about it right now. Alright, we'll move up a grit. Here's some 1200. I'll probably do a couple more. Get a nice mirror polish on these before I move on. I'm going through now and doing some light cleanup on the board. So any marks that I've made get cleaned up, and any gunk that's there is cleaned up as well. I'm just taking a razor blade and working it back and forth. It works really good to get these boards nice and clean. Alright, so I got the whole board cleaned up with the razor blade. Now I'm going to use just a little bit of this Be Good wood oil. I'm going to shake it up first. You could use boiled linseed oil or numerous other oils. I'm just going to use this because I found that I like this. And I'm going to put just a dot or two on my fingers, and then I'll rub it in that way. I think I waste a little bit less putting it on my fingers and then rubbing it on. And being that this stuff is food safe, I'm not too worried about getting it on my hands. And you can see it looks basically brand new at this point. So I'll use a little piece of cloth and wipe off the excess. That's looking good. So the last thing I did before I'm ready to restring this was I took this over to the buffing wheel and just buffed the top to make sure it all kind of matched. It was all about the same glossiness all the way over. I've got this here and it's got all of the bridge pins in and they're all in order, so I know they're all going to go back in the place they're ready to go in. And I'm ready to put strings on this, and Jerry's actually already started a pack of strings for this. This was when Dan was here, that's the customer. He was here and Jerry was looking at it. At that point, before they had decided it needed a neck reset, Jerry had put 2 strings on. So they're still wound up here, ready to go back. So we'll put those on first. For those that are unfamiliar with the 12 string, generally the lighter string goes on the bass side. The lighter of the pairs, that is, and that's generally. I know that sometimes they string them the other way. But generally, most of the acoustics are strung this way, so the thinner of the pair is the further one towards the bass side. Closest one to you. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing strung up, and then we'll take a look and see where the setup is. So I've got this tuned basically up to pitch. I'm a little ways off some out of tune strings, but they're pretty close. And the action is crazy low. It's going to need a new saddle, kind of low. But that's really not a bad thing. As I'm looking at these strings, and I noticed it on the D string even, it was buzzing a little because it's coming basically straight across that saddle. It's got no angle over the saddle, basically at all. So, not a bad thing that we can put a slightly taller saddle in there. I'm just going to have to loosen these strings up, take these out, and then, get it out and get some good measurements off of it. The other thing I have to say is whoever decided to put a slotted headstock on a 12 string was wrong. There's no argument there, they were wrong. It took me way longer than it should have. You would think stringing a 12 string would be like stringing 2 6 strings, but on a slotted headstock, you probably quadruple your time. It took me forever to get this strung because they're so close and making sure they're not going to slip. Alright, that's enough of that rant. I'm going to get to getting the saddle out of here and getting some measurements off of it. Well, I'm just finishing up tuning this, and it's looking really good. I haven't measured anything yet, but it's looking really good. And I just wanted to point out, I do not like tuning this string. It's the same thickness as the E string, but it has to go up to G. And my tuner doesn't like it either. So I made this new saddle out of antler, and I used the measurements to figure out how tall I wanted it. Here's, I drew it all on the back of this piece of paper here. For the compensation on the saddle, I just copied the old one. I figured it was probably close enough. The other thing I did off camera was I oiled the tuners. They work a lot better. Well, cool. It seems to be working. So I'm going to set this down. I'll take some measurements on action. It's getting late in the day. I think I'm just going to let this sit overnight with some tension on it. That way I'll have some idea what it's going to look like tomorrow. First thing in the morning, I'll get some measurements off it, make sure that the height is good. I noticed the edge is still just a little sharp on the saddle, so we'll just round that off a bit, and I think this should be good to go. I'll tune it back up tomorrow and we'll play it then. Alright, so this is sat tuned up all night, and I've just been playing it a little bit. I pulled out my measuring tool here. that bass string's just under 100 thousandths. That treble string's just over 90. And that would probably be just fine for a 12 string, but I think I'm going to lower it just a hair more. You know, maybe take just 20 thousandths off of the saddle. I think that'll be sitting, you know, just perfect for this guitar, and you know, that's a reasonable height. It's actually probably just as good as you could ask for out of most regular guitars, and out of a 12 string that'd be really good. So that's what I'll do. I'll lower the pitch again, get the saddle out. We'll probably just barely take 20 thousandths off, and that's basically nothing. So I have to lower the pitch on this again. As I'm taking these pins out, I can show you that I took them over. I just went over to the sander and did this. I put a little bevel on the ends of them. I think you can kind of see it there. I did that to all of them to help hold the ball end in the right place. I was having trouble with them getting stuck on the end of the pin, and then I tried to push the pin out. Anyways, I don't have that problem now. Alright, so I got this out of here now. I've already got some Sharpie marks on here, and that's good. I was using those when I was first making the size, trying to get it right. I want just 20 thousandths. Close enough. Yeah, I can see that line there. Just barely. There's just barely almost nothing to take off of there. I don't know if you can even see it. I think I can see it in the viewfinder. Anyways, I'm going to take just barely nothing off of there. I'm going to go ahead and make sure everything is rounded off as well while I have the saddle out. You know, no rough corners or anything you can scrape against your hand. And then this should be good to go. We'll put that back in there and get it tuned back up after I knock that off there. Well, I think this Martin 12 string is done. It is set up really well. I mean, it's set up really well for a 12 string today, let alone a 12 string from '67. The action is sitting about, it's just above 85 thousandths on the low E and just above 75 thousandths on the high E. So I mean, I don't know that you could ask for any more from a 12 string. And it sounds really good. I think the antler saddle actually is a big improvement. So I'll give you one more good close look at this. You can see the whole thing here. You know, we got that neck angle sitting just right now. So them strings are sitting real low. It's actually really easy to play for a 12 string. I think this thing should be good. I'll set it aside for Jerry to take a look at, and we can send it on back to Dan.
Caleb just did a nice job on the neck reset and then the subsequent setup of this 12 string Martin guitar. Dan, if you're not happy with this, I know where you can send it. It's pretty nice. Yeah, I like it. It's really plays easy, it sounds good. It's a nice guitar.
Hope you enjoyed this work on this 12 string, the neck reset, and a little bit of setup. If you did, thumbs up would be appreciated, and even more would be subscribing. We're trying to get to 100,000. Thanks for watching.